So many familiar faces. Thank you so much for being here. I just want to let you all know that we will be recording this session for future use. So just wanted you all to know. Thank you for all. I have your cameras on, so I'm not just talking to a black hole. Y'all look amazing. But I also understand that folks got to multitask. And so thank you so much for joining us for our open house. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you all. There we go. So thank you so much for joining us to our virtual open house. SHARP, the Office of Sexual Harassment and Assault Response and Prevention, which is part of the Human Rights Commission. Kelly Lou is here as well with us. We'll be doing introductions in a little bit, but before we get started, I did want to do an Indigenous land acknowledgement. Here in San Francisco Bay Area, we are on land that is part of the Ramaytush Ohlone people. I also want to name that these specific tribal designations don't necessarily reflect the diversity or complexities and exact location of Indigenous people in these regions. So for more information on Indigenous land, you can go to native-land.ca. A land acknowledgement allows us to consider the history that has brought you to live and work on the land. I want to acknowledge that while we gather here virtually, San Francisco is on ancestral land. And even though these people face genocide and forced removal from their homelands, they are still here. This land was and continues to be of great importance to the Indigenous peoples. May we take a moment to acknowledge, pay respect, and consider our relationship to the land that we reside on. Thank you so much for participating. So as I mentioned, this is the virtual open house for SHARP, the Office of Sexual Harassment, Assault, Response, and Prevention. And we're gonna start off with some staff introductions. So I'll let Kelly Lou go first.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. We're thrilled to have our first virtual open house and to share more with you. So my name is Kelly Lou Densmore. I'm the director of SHARP. And just for you to get a little bit, for you to have a little bit more information about me and then also about Dulce right after this slide. So I come out of having a legal background, and I spent the last 5 years before joining SHARP as the legal director at the TGI Justice Project, the Transgender, Gender Variant, Intersex Justice Project. And I really learned so much there. And from that experience and also before it, I really grew a commitment to not only working with and serving, but building power with unrepresented and underserved communities for social change. And because of my experience at TGI, I have a real passion for working with currently and formerly incarcerated people, and then also members of the LGBT community. And then just some of my background, I went to law school here in San Francisco. And then I also have done some state policy work with the Women's Policy Institute, and I'm learning a lot about how that translates to working to do policy at the local level in San Francisco. And then I also am a board member for the National Lawyers Guild for the Bay Area chapter. And in all my spare time, I love to bake, and I am gluten-free, and so are multiple people in my life. So I do a lot of cakes and cupcakes to help bring joy into my life.
Thanks for sharing, Kelly Lou. So my name is Dulce Garcia. I'm the policy director for SHARP. I've been on board for about a month now. I go by she and her pronouns. I'm a California certified rape crisis counselor. I'm actually coming from working with SF4, which is San Francisco Women Against Rape, the only rape crisis center here in San Francisco. I served as their bilingual community education consultant for the past 7 years. So I come from a commitment to serving underrepresented and underserved communities through an anti-oppression framework where, you know, as SF4 strongly believes that people are the experts of their own lives. And I strongly believe in, being survivor-centered, letting people and letting survivors guide what it is that they need for their healing, and what justice looks like for them. I'm originally from East Los Angeles, and I went to UC Irvine. I got 2 bachelors there in sociology and Chicano studies, and I've been in the Bay Area for 14 years. I did my master's here in ethnic studies at San Francisco State University. And during my spare time, I do a lot of creative expression. I'm a filmmaker, but mostly lately I do a lot of dancing and performing in bachata and salsa. Specifically in bachata, I love to be a lead as a femme, as a queer femme. I love, having representation. So I'm super excited to bring my whole self into this job.
Thank you, Dulce. So a little bit about Sharp. We're well, it still feels like we're a brand new office, but we're about a year old now. And we are housed in the Human Rights Commission. And our mission, oh, it actually cuts off on my screen. Okay, yeah. So the mission of SHARP, the Office of SHARP works to ensure that survivors are believed, responded to, and treated with dignity by city government when voicing their experience of sexual violence. We advocate for survivors in navigating the current
Sorry. There you go.
Thank you. Let's see, we advocate for survivors in navigating the current response systems, and we work with community to transform and create new system approaches to addressing and ending sexual violence. Our vision, the Office of SHARP envisions a San Francisco with no incidents of sexual assault or harassment. Should it occur, we envision a San Francisco with a variety of accessible options that a survivor can choose from to address their harm and healing process, each approach working to end the immediate violence as well as the conditions in which it was able to occur.
Here are our values that we are guided by. Our work is led and shaped by survivors of sexual violence, first and foremost, particularly survivors who don't report to the police or who have a history of mistrust of city government and court systems, and whose voices are often left out of the conversation on sexual violence. We're talking about centering Black women, Latinas, Asian Pacific Islander women, Native Indigenous women, transgender people, and gender nonconforming folks, youth, workers in low-wage jobs, sex workers, undocumented people, and people with disabilities, and currently or formerly incarcerated people. We seek to support those who are harmed by sexual violence to be heard, to heal, and take action towards systemic change in the way San Francisco responds to sexual harassment and assault. And we understand that sexual violence does not occur in silo. To address sexual harassment and assault, we must also address larger structures of violence and oppression, including racism, sexism, economic injustice, transphobia, homophobia, ableism, and xenophobia. That's why coming from an anti-oppression framework is so important for us. Our work reflects the complex connections of all forms of domestic violence, harassment, coercion, and gender-based violence. We practice accessibility solidarity by providing services in multiple languages, offering culturally relevant support, following ADA compliant in our spaces, post-COVID, right? And responding to the unique needs of those who are both people with disabilities and survivors. And we understand our work within city government to be one strategy that is part of a larger movement to end sexual violence. We understand that to end sexual violence, change must be institutional, interpersonal, policy-driven, and cultural. As someone who's coming from working within the community with SF4 and now working within city government, I understand, right, that in order to end sexual violence, we must end all forms of oppression, not just sexual violence, and that working within city government is just one strategy, and that all strategies are valid and must be used to end sexual violence. And most importantly, we honor the legacy of feminists and anti-violence organizers who have come before us, particularly feminists of color whose work and analysis have created the space and the foundation for us to be able to do this work today.
Thank you, Dulce. So specifically what SHARP is charged with doing are these, we think of them as they fall into these three categories. So we do advocacy, policy, and prevention. So kind of our baseline, I'd say almost most important, but also just like the grounding place that we start is receiving complaints from survivors concerning the ways that city agencies have responded to or failed to respond to or responded to poorly to when a survivor uses those services to address their sexual assault or harassment. So this means if a survivor goes to the hospital, for example, and has to wait, many hours before being seen, or feels like they are mistreated during their medical exam or whatnot, they can then file a complaint with our office about that treatment, and also let us know like what their hopes are to get out of a complaint, or like what they would wish to do going forward. And Dulce and I will work on addressing each complaint on its own. So, every incident of sexual violence is different, and every interaction with different city agencies we imagine is going to be different. So we'll take complaints as individuals come into our office, and then tailor them to the needs of each survivor based on what they know that they need and want, and then asking us we'll collaborate on creating a plan to address the harms that have been caused in the ways that the city has responded or responded poorly to the needs of that survivor. So that includes advocating for survivors who, going forward, navigating the agencies to resolve the complaints or mishandlings. And again, this process will be slightly different for each complaint based on the mishandling, based on the survivor, and based on the needs and wishes. So it could mean like meeting with the officer who failed to investigate a case, or meeting with the medical staff who, didn't provide enough information, or the survivor didn't know what happened with their rape kit, for example. We'll be with the survivor to advocate going forward to try and resolve whatever mishandling or failed response that had occurred. And then from receiving those complaints, our hope is then to use not only the complaints, but also the work that Dulce and I will be doing in community, and the work that we're doing with our advisory committee, which you will learn about, to then create policy, community-driven, survivor-led policy recommendations that we can bring to the different agencies in San Francisco, or to City Hall, to the Board of Supervisors, whatever the need is, to have meaningful policies that provide support and resources for survivors of sexual harassment and assault, both within and outside of the criminal legal system. We currently want to work with the existing response system. So Dulce and I are both members of the San Francisco Sexual Assault Response Team. And that's a team that's made up of medical professionals, the district attorney, their sex crimes unit, but also their victim services unit, police officers. SF War is in that group. And so that coalition really looks at and works together to address the needs of survivors within the systems that currently exist. And then Dulce and I also know from the work that we've been a part of, and then from all the education that we've been gracefully shared with while collecting information and starting SHARP, that there are a lot of programs and ideas and suggestions on ways that survivors can find accountability and support and healing outside of the criminal legal system in particular, but also outside of the existing government systems. And so we hope to build policies there as well, and provide city support for whatever those look like. And then finally, on the prevention side, we know that we can put Band-Aids and might try and make as much policy changes as possible to address the needs of survivors, but we know that prevention and that includes starting at age appropriate, having information be at age appropriate levels throughout somebody's lifetime, to really work on prevention efforts. So we are excited to collaborate with hopefully all of you who are on this call to engage in public education and culture shifting towards a San Francisco, but also just a world without sexual violence.
Absolutely.
And we'll have, oh, sorry, Dulce.
No, go ahead.
We'll have time at the end of this program for questions. So maybe jot them down for now, and then I'm happy to answer more specific questions about what this all means later.
Absolutely. So as you can see, right, our focus is on advocacy, policy, and prevention, but we also want to be really clear what we don't do. So SHARP does not provide direct services. Direct services, of course, can easily be found through like SF4, Women Inc., other organizations that are doing more direct services, but the Office of SHARP does not do direct services. We do not take cases to court. That is also something that is not under us. And we do not represent survivors in any legal matter. So we also want to be very clear when people are seeking these services that these are the things we don't do, but that we can easily connect survivors to organizations and partners, which most of them are part of our advisory committee, that they can do those things. So we can connect folks and do referrals, but we want to be clear about what's not under our office.
And then I spoke a little bit about this in the previous slide, but this is our complaint form and it's found on our website. If people haven't been to our website yet, I encourage you all to visit it. We're very proud of it. It's brand new and it's at sharp-sf.org. And on the very front page this is our complaint intake form. It's the best way to get a hold of us. You can also contact us at sharp@sfgov.org or call us, and we'll list all this contact information later in the programming. But this is a really easy way to get in touch with us. And it's I wish we could show the entire thing here, but please visit it on the website. It's pretty straightforward and dry. This is just the intake, the very initial intake process, and that's a way for Dulce and I to see the beginnings of what you're hoping to work with us on. And then once we have this intake form, we'll contact you for a one-on-one, or maybe it will be both of us, 2-on-1, more thorough intake on each incident, to hear more about each incident, where the government failings were, and what the survivor needs and wants going forward. So these complaint forms right now are currently in Spanish, and we hope that very soon they'll also be available in a number of different languages. So please let your communities and people in your life know that this is now available, and where Dulce and I are open for meeting with survivors.
For me and Kali Lou, it's really important for SHARP to be rooted in community. That's why we have an advisory committee. Our advisory committee consists of SF4, San Francisco Women Against Rape, CUAV, Community United Against Violence. I see you all here. Thank you for attending. Women Inc., Steph, Joe, I see you here too. The Transgender District, St. James Infirmary, TGI Justice Project, Ella para Trans Latinas, the Women's Building, and Project Survive. The role of the advisory committee is first to provide expertise. That's the primary focus of the advisory committee, is for them to offer their individual and collective expertise to help fill knowledge gaps that we may have, with the focus on ensuring that SHARP's work positively supports survivors who are most marginalized. The other role that they have is to keep Sharp rooted in community, by sharing our resources, by sharing our services with their networks, to collaborate together to address community issues and needs, and to co-host projects or events to end sexual violence. We have an event coming up actually with KUAV. It's called It May Restore You. It's a play on the Netflix show, or Hulu, I think, of I May Destroy You. And it's gonna center the healing of the Black community. So we'll definitely share that link with you all as well. The advisory committee is also there to ensure that Sharp succeeds, right? To help identify opportunities and give us advice and support and to weather challenges. Also to identify pitfalls. Another job is that, it's to help us foresee and identify obstacles or pitfalls that we may have and help us create strategic changes. And most importantly, to deliver honest, frank advice. We want to be held accountable. We are here to serve survivors who are most marginalized. And so we want the advisory committee to have, Sharp's best interests in heart, even if those recommendations contradict the thinking of me and Kelly Lou, right? We're here to serve the community. And we're also to be held accountable. So the advisory committee will be evaluating us as staff and the work that we are doing. So in the spirit of being rooted in community, we are going to do a small activity. I'm going to explain to you all how this works. We want to have community input. So we are going to have a virtual whiteboard, which essentially is a Google Doc, and I'll show it to you in a bit. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to know what you're thinking. We broke up into 7 different groups or 7 different themes. Ranging from sexual violence impact. So how does sexual violence impact your community, impact you? Community resources, systemic changes and government accountability, accountability and restorative justice, healing, prevention, and skills for healthy relationships and community events. So I will show you here. This is the Google Doc that you will come to. You will be broken up into a group. You will go into a breakout group. You're welcome to discuss within the group, but more importantly, we want you to type into the Google Doc. We want to collect this data. So imagine this as a virtual gallery walk where you have different posters around the room and you get to write in one poster, then walk to the other side of the room and write down your thoughts on that topic. That's kind of like what we're doing, but virtually. So you're going to be assigned to a group. If you get assigned to breakout group number 5, you're gonna go to number 5 here on the Google Doc. And if you hover over it and click on it, you'll see that there's a bookmark. At that point, just click on the bookmark and it'll take you to that page, and it'll tell you which questions we're gonna ask you. So for example, in healing, we're asking you, what does healing look like for yourself as an individual, as a survivor, as a community, as a society, etc. You'll have about 4 minutes to type in your thoughts here. You all will have access to type in. After 4 minutes, Amelia is gonna do a wide broadcast that you can move to any other group. What that means is that, you're not going to move into another breakout group. You're welcome to come back to the very top of the page and select any other group that you want to have input in. So if you were in group 5 in healing, but you want to talk about community resources, then you go ahead and click on community resources, click on the bookmark, and it'll take you to that page. You're going to have opportunity to do this 3 times. So you'll go into your breakout group. Please start where you get assigned, but then we'll do a broadcast after 4 minutes to choose any other group of your choosing, and then 1 more time again. So you have 3 different chances. If you're a quick typer and you want to answer all 7 groups, the more the better for us. But thank you so much for putting this community input. Amelia, if you can, I'm going to do stop sharing. And if you don't mind breaking us out, please, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
So everybody should have gotten a notice on their screen. If you could just go ahead and accept it and it'll take you there.
Thank you, Amelia.
Thank you, Amelia. Welcome back, everyone. I was looking at the Google Doc and it was so cool to see all the automated responses you all were putting in. So thank you so much for doing that. We're super excited to read through that, but we also wanted to give an opportunity for folks to shout loud. I know we have a couple folks here on video, some folks on the phone. So feel free to unmute yourself if there's anything that really stood out to you that you wanted to share with the larger group. I think it's important to kind of speak these things into the universe, right? And so, yeah, folks, feel free to unmute yourself if you feel like you would like to share anything that really stood out to you or that really got your, wheels turning and thinking. So I'll go ahead and just let y'all unmute yourself if you want to share.
I was part of group 3. So it was Hi, I'm Suki Divine. I'm not in San Francisco right now, but I did serve 17 years and I'm on my way home. So, and I'm very good friends with Celestina Meow Meow at, y'all know Celestina. So we've known each other since like 1999. And around that time I worked at the Hospitality House and I was the community arts program manager there for a couple years. So that's where my connection into all this stuff. I did other work, but that's, that was my block for a while.
What an honor to have you join us. Thank you.
I'm in New Orleans now. I've been here for 8 years and it is a lot of I got a lot of research because I've been out in the world. It's not like home. And so, what I've been suffering, I realize, is sexual harassment. And for being a mixed Asian and no respect. So filling in for Latina, for for Asian woman, for indigenous, and all the disrespect and all the sexualization that goes along with that. That said, what I wanted to really talk about, and I'll be as brief as possible, was that what I really believe in is self-defense. And what I really found was that in a fight with a boy, I'm still trained to be prey, even as tough as I am, even as everything, because they're gonna get you in those moments where you are polite. And I'm an Asian woman, so that was where they could get me, where I was super polite in a new environment, And so, close quarter combat, things where you have muscle memory to defend yourself. And I was joking in there, but like Tomb Raiders, like little Angelina Jolie Tomb Raiders, not this new Tomb Raider that 5 minutes into the film and she's like, oh, tap out. And I was like, no, what is going on? Are you serious? Because that has been since 2012. Women have gotten weaker in defending themselves. So it isn't that anybody, I've been turning myself into a Detective Benson on this whole matter. So I've been very connected up New York City. But my heart is here with you and I know we've all gone through it. And I just, what it's done to my spirit. And I want to go home. I want to click my heels and come fight with SF War.
Yes.
Yes, I'm like, yeah, totally. So nice to see everyone.
Thank you for sharing, Suki. Absolutely, yes. Self-defense is definitely one of those community events that we look forward to co-hosting once COVID, allows us to. So thank you. Anybody else like to share their thoughts in the community input activity we just did? You're welcome to unmute yourself.
I don't want to be the one of bad hope, but I had the terriblest time even doing the activity. I couldn't get on and it was really bad. I got kind of frustrated, so I don't think I did, but one. Yeah, I couldn't get on the dock.
Yeah, sorry about that, Martina. What I'll do right now is I'll go ahead and share the link via chat to everyone. So this is accessible, so you're welcome to copy and paste this and share it with your constituents, with the communities you serve, with your participants, because we want community input. So Martina, if you have time afterwards, you're welcome to still add in your input because it's definitely, I know you're a survivor advocate, and so your input and your expertise is incredibly valuable.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Martina. Anybody else like to share? We have a couple of more minutes. This is usually the part that I share that I'm a rape crisis counselor, and I'm like super comfortable with awkward silence. But you know, you're also welcome to share in the chat room, but I want to make sure that I give time for folks who need a little more extra time to get their thoughts together to share with the rest of us.
I did want to say it was a nice person on here named Carol. I hope she's still here. She was able to write a couple of things down for me as I was talking. So I don't know if she shared all, because I got bumped off for a minute, so I'm back on now. But she definitely was able to put some things on it. And I think she put the hardest, I think you guys got some really hard questions on there, because when you say to people what healing looks like for your community, that's very, very hard. What do healing look for yourself? I can only speak that I'm an African American woman and I'm 52 years old. When you have lots and lots of trauma already, then your community is continue to have a lot of trauma. Then you're an advocate, you're hearing every day about others' trauma. How do you even know what healing looks like? I told Carol, and I think she can, my words to her was, I don't think that we're, when African Americans usually say they angry, people think we're talking about violence. Violence and anger is two things. I think we totally are just angry that it's no time for us to heal, because it's one thing after another, after another, after another, and after another. And then when you do this work, it's more after another, after another. So it almost makes you feel like, as African Americans, should we even be doing this work? Because we have a lot of trauma of our own we need to deal with. And then when you do have, like I said, I work for FF4, and a lot of people that look like me don't even come and see me. We don't know what going to a rape crisis look like, or talking about rape, or talking about different things. So that's another thing that frustrates me. I can talk about a whole lot of stuff, but I just say that frustrates me too, that I don't see people like us coming in or and talking about this, because it's too much trauma that comes up with all of this. And we just learning how to deal with trauma, because we had parents and grandparents who was in the cotton fields and who had to do it, so we can do it. So yeah, that's all I have to say. That's a little much, but yeah, that's what I have to say. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Martina. I think it's so important to name, name what's happening today, right? That like for Black folks and African American folks, that like it can't be business as usual, right? That like you just can't go on and be like, okay, let me go to work and serve these clients, especially when you work with clients who are dealing with violence on a daily basis. And I think it is important that you name these experiences both as a provider and as a survivor yourself, right? And so, yes, thank you for your words and your thoughts. Actually, that just made me realize that I'm going to share the It May Restore You event that's coming up with KUAV that specifically centers Black experiences and the Black experience. So I'm going to put that link in the chat room for everyone, for folks to share with, for folks that it will be useful for. I want to be mindful of time, so I'm going to go ahead and go back to sharing my PowerPoint. So give me a second. Kelly Lou, can you take us from here?
Sure, yeah. Before I jump into the survey, or I guess this is part of an introduction to the survey, I just want to say, Dulce said this also, but that feel free to continue to put in that document. And this is just like a taste of, this is like one way that SHARP is showing that we're committed to hearing the needs and ideas and creativity of the community to help us drive the direction of the work that we're going to do. It's really important to us to take your all's, to follow your leadership and your knowledge. So that was the point of that activity, as well as the point of this survey. And this survey is really more in response to the times that we're living in right now. You know, I think we're in our 7th month. Is that true? Wow, 7th month of sheltering in place now. And we know that's been extremely difficult on survivors, and we've seen more incidents of domestic violence in particular, and I know it's been harder for survivors to access services or leave their home, or even to know how to be safe in accessing support in this moment. And so part of this survey is about services and support and resources during COVID-19 and how it's impacted you as a survivor, and also if you're a provider, like what you've seen your participants and or clients experience in this moment. And then we also have seen, you know, starting in, I think it was end of May, throughout the summer, just like this, I mean, it's been going on for years and years, right? But a new wave of this beautiful racial justice, the Black Lives Matter movement, and a call for defunding police. And, you know, we know that for survivors in particular, a lot of times, like we're told to address our issues through policing, or you know, we've what am I trying to say? Just that we know that this movement directly impacts survivors, and like relates to what Martina was just sharing around like Black people not having time to heal, and so this survey also is trying to collect the ways that this time period has impacted survivors, and if there's resources or ideas that SHARP can use to support survivors during this time. And then in particular, you know, if we're dreaming about defunding the police or reallocating police funding, we can't say, you know, we're not making any promises that SHARP can do that. But this is a time period to take advantage of that call. And so please, we're trying to collect your ideas and thoughts of like, maybe those resources go to trauma, or like, you know, trauma-informed therapy or art services or support groups or whatever it is that you as the survivor community and as providers to the survivor community think and dream about ways that our community can heal. So please, yeah, so here at the bottom of the page is a link to the survey, and we'll also send out a follow-up email after today to everyone who's registered that has both the community input whiteboard activity document as well as the survey and some other information so that you can work on this after this event.
Yeah, and I also just want to name that this survey is kind of broken up into 2 main sections. One section is specifically for survivors, for people who self-identify for survivors, and then the second section is for providers. So all of you here who are, you know, working with these community-based organizations, you know, you can fill it out both as a self-identified survivor or just as a provider with, you know, the communities that you're working with. So I'll make sure to put this link in the chat room in a little bit, but we'll also do the follow-up email as well. And with that, it's 2:58, but we did wait about 5 minutes for folks to trickle in. So if you need to go, I totally get it, but we wanted to make sure that we opened up for questions. You know, we want to thank you for attending. And so I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen, but I want to give folks a chance to note down our website and our email. Our website is sharp-sf.org, and our email is sharp@sfgov.org. You can also contact us via our website, but I want to go ahead and exit from sharing my screen so we can do a gallery view. If folks have questions about anything that was covered, about the work that we do, about our role, I want to make sure I have enough time, give folks enough time, and I'll put in the link for the survey as well. Any thoughts or questions?
Hi, I'm Tatiana, and I'm Sharp's one of Sharp's 3 TCSF volunteers through the, I guess through the Project Survive. My teacher Adele is also here, and one of our tasks for the project is to solicit, I guess, like user experiences for the website. So if you visit the website and you have any thoughts, I'm going to go ahead and drop, if it's okay with Lutza and Kelly Lou. I made a survey. It's a little clunky, but it would really help us out to collect information based off your user experience.
Yay, thank you so much, Tatiana.
So I just want to thank you all for your hard work and everything. And I guess my question is to you, what are you both looking forward to? What are you most looking forward to with this launch?
That's a good question. Thank you, Dominique. I've been in community for 7 years through SF4. So for me, what's exciting is to switch hats and have a new role, but still deeply be committed to ending sexual violence in our communities, in our world. And so I'm really excited about being able to do that work just through a different realm, through a different sector. You know, I imagine it like, I imagine ending sexual violence like an octopus, and this is just one tentacle, right? One way of ending sexual violence, one way. Some people do want to, you know, report to the police, some don't. And so having those conversations of why people don't, maybe it's about safety, maybe they just don't really care for that, right? And so just having those conversations with folks and, you know, imagining really the world that we want to live in, which is the world where we each get to show up as our whole selves.
Love it. Thank you.
For me, I think, I mean, it's amazing that an office like this hadn't existed within government already. So it feels overdue and timely at the same time to create a new project like this. And I feel honored to be able to do it. And I think what I'm most excited about the call or the legislation that created this office is like specific enough so that we know where we're going with the complaint process, but they also wrote it to be broad enough so that the community so that we have an opportunity to really shape how we want this office to look like and what the programs look like and what direction it goes in. And that I think is the most exciting part to me, and why this part of the development of our office is so so full or so exciting to collect the ideas of what the needs are, and have the space and opportunity and resources to dream, to create something that is useful to the community.
Thank you, Dominique. That's such a good question.
Yeah, thank you.
My question is, I'm not familiar with what Sharp is doing. Is it inclusive of both men and women? Okay, so that's good. All right, yeah.
They're all survivors, yeah.
Yeah, because of course I work with a lot of gay men and a lot of sex workers, both female and male, trans, everybody, anybody, right? So definitely have a lot of collection of stories. And are we also dealing with children as well?
Yeah. Any survivor, regardless of age or demographic identity, if someone is self-identified as survivor of sexual violence, and sexual violence meaning the spectrum from, you know, verbal, visual, sexual harassment, all the way to rape, assault, etc. Yeah, the spectrum is very, it's large.
It's big work, because it also starts in the home and with family dynamics and with power dynamics and abuse language. I mean, we can, it would take years, it would take us a whole, but we can hit some bullet points. And that's I work with children, and so and I've taught college, I've taught high school, I've taught all kinds of different things as a film professor and also as an art teacher. But what I'm really doing is art therapy. And so really colonialist language, and this affects everyone. It doesn't matter, it's patriarchy no matter what we're talking about. And young men, boys, little boys, everybody's affected as equal, equally. It's just what you're trained in your psyche, how you're going to deal with abuse, because we know about alpha maleness, and the runt gets a lot of abuse, sort of thing, those sort of things. So, so I'm very, very happy that you guys exist, and I would like to be a support as much as possible as well.
Thank you, Suki. Yeah. I mean, just like Kelly Lou mentioned, right? Our office is overdue, but I also look forward to the day where our office doesn't have to exist, right? Where rape crisis centers don't have to exist because we eradicated sexual violence. But for now, we're here to do the work. And we want to be mindful of time. So Kelly Lou and I will hang out for a while if folks want to talk one-on-one or have thoughts or questions. But I want to be mindful that it's 3:06 and that you all have busy work days and probably many more Zoom meetings to attend. So thank you all so much for joining us for our virtual open house. It's so good to see so many familiar faces. So thank you. Kelly Lou, any last thoughts?
Just that we're really excited to work with you and continue to build with you, and so we got a lot to do together. So thank you so much for being here today, and we look forward to seeing you all soon.
Yeah, take care, everyone. Bye.